You walked past something broken today and noticed it immediately, not dramatically, not in a way anyone else would even register. Maybe it was a cabinet door hanging slightly uneven, a strange clicking sound in the car, a chair that shifted a little too much when someone sat down. And without deciding to, your brain locked onto it. You didn't announce it, you probably didn't even mention it, but somewhere in the back of your mind, the problem stayed open, like a browser tab you never closed. And if you're the kind of person this video is about, that feeling is extremely familiar, because some people don't just notice broken things, they feel pulled toward them. Not for praise, not because they're trying to look useful. You see something not working correctly and your brain immediately starts tracing the cause. What failed, what shifted, what stopped lining up. And the strange part is that it doesn't feel exhausting. It feels engaging. You've probably fixed things nobody asked you to fix, adjusted hinges at someone else's house while talking to them, rewired something after watching 3 tutorials and pausing every 14 seconds. Taken apart an appliance because it felt physically irritating knowing it existed in a broken state, and most people around you assume this is just practicality. But psychologically, it goes much deeper than that. Researchers use the term systemizing to describe the drive to understand how things work. Not just machines, systems. Cause and effect, input and output. Patterns. People high in systemizing don't just look at objects. They mentally map relationships between parts. The leaking faucet isn't just a faucet. It is pressure. Seal failure. Where the brain starts constructing explanations automatically. And what is important here is that fixers don't experience uncertainty the same way other people do. For a lot of people, a complicated problem creates avoidance. They look at something broken and think, I wouldn't even know where to start. Fixers usually do something else. They lean closer. Not because they already know the answer, but because they trust the process of figuring it out. That is a huge distinction. A person who has fixed enough things develops evidence with themselves. They remember all the previous moments where something looked impossible, right up until it wasn't. The washing machine that seemed dead. The engine noise nobody could identify. The software issue that took 6 hours and one deeply buried forum post from 2011. Every solved problem becomes proof. Proof that confusion is survivable. Proof that answers can be reached. And eventually, the fear of not knowing starts shrinking. That is part of why fixers often appear calm during chaos. The average person experiences disruption emotionally first. The fixer experiences it analytically first. Everyone else is reacting. The fixer is scanning. Where is the failure point? What changed? What is the first thing to test? And that mindset becomes more than behavior, it becomes identity. Somewhere along the way, people started relying on you. Maybe because you were competent. Maybe because you stayed calm. Maybe because while everyone else panicked, you quietly started solving things. So now, you are the person people call. The one expected to know what to do. And you probably carry that role more heavily than anyone realizes. Because competence has a strange psychological side effect. Once people experience you as capable, they slowly stop imagining you as someone who might also need help. And if you've been in that role long enough, eventually you stop imagining it too. That is where this gets more personal. A lot of people who compulsively fix things learned something early in life. Usually quietly, usually indirectly. They learned that relying on other people was unreliable. Not always because someone was cruel. Sometimes because the adults around them were overwhelmed. A parent too exhausted to notice. A household where needing things felt inconvenient. An environment where the fastest way through a problem was handling it yourself. Children adapt incredibly fast to emotional environments. If asking for help repeatedly feels ineffective, the brain starts building alternatives. Self-sufficiency becomes safety, and when those adaptations work, they stay. That is important. People think personality forms from conscious decisions. Usually, it forms from repeated emotional conditions. Learning that your value doesn't disappear in moments where you cannot repair the outcome. That lesson takes time. Especially for people who spent most of their lives earning love through usefulness. And yes, that pattern exists more often than people realize. A lot of capable people unconsciously learned that being helpful made them safer, more appreciated, more necessary. So they became indispensable. The reliable child. The mature one. The stable one. And eventually competence stopped being something they did. It became the reason they believed they deserved space in other people's lives. Which means failure feels disproportionately threatening. If usefulness equals worth, then struggling feels dangerous. That is why fixers can be strangely uncomfortable receiving help from the people they help constantly. Because reciprocity feels emotionally unfamiliar. You'd gladly show up for someone else at 2 a.m. But if the situation reversed, you'd hesitate before calling. You'd probably convince yourself it is not important enough. Or that you can handle it, or that you don't want to bother anyone. Meanwhile, the people around you would probably help immediately if you asked. That is the painful irony. Fixers are usually extremely generous toward weakness in others and extremely intolerant of it in themselves. They extend understanding outward and pressure inward. And after enough years, that imbalance becomes exhausting. But here is the part I think matters most. The instinct to fix things isn't bad, it isn't pathology. Honestly, it is one of the more beautiful ways a person can move through the world, because underneath all of it is a specific belief that things can improve. Think about what fixing actually requires psychologically. You look at disorder and imagine restoration. You look at failure and imagine function. That is hope, practical hope, quiet hope. Hope wearing work boots instead of motivational quotes. A lot of people stop believing improvement is possible long before they admit it. Fixers usually don't, even exhausted ones. Because somewhere deep down, they still believe systems can function better than they currently do. That is why they keep trying. That is why they keep learning, keep adjusting, keep rebuilding. And honestly, the world probably works because people like that exist. The people willing to stay with a problem longer than everyone else. The people patient enough to understand how something failed before throwing it away. That mindset matters. But so does remembering that you are not only valuable when you are useful. That might be the hardest thing for a fixer to fully believe. You can still be competent without carrying everything alone. You can still be reliable without becoming emotionally unreachable. You can still repair things without treating yourself like another machine that only deserves care when it is functioning properly. The drawer full of tools stays yours. The practical knowledge, the patience, the instinct to improve what is broken, none of that disappears. You are just allowed to direct some of that same attention inward occasionally, because some fixers spend their entire lives repairing everything around them while quietly operating with systems inside themselves that have needed maintenance for years. And maybe the strangest thing of all is this: if someone else came to you carrying exactly what you are carrying, you would help them without hesitation. You'd probably be kind about it too. The question is whether someday you'll let that same logic apply to you. One last thing. And only because I think people watching this will genuinely get value from it. There is a link in the description and pinned comment to a bundle of 7-day guides built around the kinds of things fixers tend to quietly struggle with. Mental overload, overthinking, constant background stress, sleep issues, focus problems, the feeling that your brain never fully powers down. Each guide is built around small daily actions instead of just theory. Because if you are the kind of person who naturally fixes things, information usually isn't the problem. Implementation is. It is in the description and pinned comment if you want to check it out. And if this video resonated with you, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future uploads.